Every time a new gacha game gets announced, we all look for one thing, and that is the gacha system. Is there a 50-50? How's the art PT? Does PT carry over? How many pulls do I need to guarantee a character? And that's exactly what's happening right now with Silver Palace. The developers finally revealed how their gacha system works, and the community is already seeing the exact same story that happened before with Arknights Endfield. But having played gacha games for a few years, I noticed a pattern. Most gacha systems don't actually matter, at least until they do. And that's what I want to talk about today, the standard. Let's start with Silver Palace. If you haven't seen the system yet, I'll leave it on the screen for a few seconds so you can pause and read it. The short version though is that it's very similar to Arknights Endfield systems. Instead of the traditional lose once, next one is guaranteed model that games like Genshin, Honkai Star Rail and Wuthering Waves use, Silver Palace uses a different approach, where you have a 50-50. Where you have a 50-50 at ADPD and you have no guarantee after losing the 50-50, and the guarantee for the rate up is always at 120. And that's the part that immediately caught players' attention. And we don't know for sure yet, but your progress might not carry over the same way many players have gotten used to. Now, whether this system is mathematically better or worse isn't even my main point. My point is that it immediately became one of the biggest discussions around the game. Everything went out the window, the upcoming beta, the gameplay, the trailers, and instead it became a conversation about monetization. Why? Because modern gacha games have created a standard. They're not all the same, but they are similar enough that players know what to expect. You save pools, you can stop whenever you want, your PT usually isn't wasted. Eventually you'll get your character. Once a game reaches that baseline, people stop thinking about the gacha, and I think that's exactly how it should be. The best gacha system is the one you forget exists. I think the best gacha system isn't the most generous one. It's the one you forget exists. Think about Wuthering Waves and its launch. People praised the weapon banner, people praised the improvements over Genshin. It generated a lot of goodwill before release. But once everyone started playing, most people weren't saying, "Whoa, this weapon banner is amazing." People were instead actually playing the game. They were exploring, fighting bosses, building characters, enjoying the game. The gacha became an afterthought. And that's exactly what you want as a developer. The less players think about your monetization, the more they're allowed to actually enjoy the game and the world around them, when it starts to matter. Now, compared to Endfield, when I played it, I constantly had the gacha system in the back of my mind. Not because I wanted more 6 stars, because I couldn't play the way I normally play. At the beginning of a gacha game, you're often pulling just to expand your roster. Maybe you want some 4 stars, or 5 stars in case of Endfield. Maybe you're okay getting an early 6 star. Maybe you're just building your account. Normally, if you stop pulling halfway through a banner, it's not a huge deal. Your progress is still there. With Endfield systems though, every pull felt like a commitment. If I wasn't ready to go all the way, I felt punished for pulling at all. And that's the moment a gacha system starts to matter. Not because it's different, because you actively feel it while you're playing. A good system stays invisible. A bad system constantly reminds you it exists. And when it does, it hurts your enjoyment. It's not just about the system. Now, before anyone misunderstands me, the gacha system itself is only part of the equation. Let's imagine 2 games. Game A guarantees a character every 80 pulls, no 50-50, no BS. Sounds incredible. And the game gives you 80 pulls every patch. Now imagine another game. It has a traditional 50-50, you might need up to 160 pulls. Sounds worse, right? Except it gives you enough currency every patch to actually reach that guarantee. Which game is more generous? Exactly. The number of pull the games gives you matters far more than the PT mechanics alone. Because in example B, you'd get 2 characters instead of just 1. And you also might get a chance to get your rate up before you get 2 characters and lose your 50-50. Even with the 50-50, it can be a better gacha system. That's why I don't think you should judge a game only by reading its banner rules. You have to look at the entire economy. So why does the system still matter? But if pool income is more important, why am I even making this video? Because the gacha system is your first impression of the developers. Before we play the story, before we try the combat, before we have explored the world, the monetization is one of the first things we actually look at. And that decision tells players something. If a developer creates a player-friendly system, people naturally think, these developers might actually respect my time and my wallet. Even if that's not always true. Likewise, Otherwise, if the system immediately feels restrictive, players start asking, why make it this way? Why remove flexibility? Who does this actually benefit? That's why these discussions happen before launch. They're not really about the system itself, they're about trust among other things. More leverage for the developer. And here's the biggest reason I dislike systems like this. It's not because they're automatically the least generous, it's because they give developers more leverage to make their game more predatory. Let's say two games give exactly the same number of pulls every patch. One lets me pull whenever I want, the other encourages me to commit to an entire pity cycle or risk losing value. That means I'm making decisions based on the system instead of the characters I actually want, or at least want to give a try to get an early. Even if both games are equally generous on paper, one gives me far more freedom, the other gives the developer more opportunities to pressure my decisions. That's the part I and most people do not like. Not necessarily because it's worse right now, but because it gives them more room to make the experience worse later. And once that happens, the gacha system stops being invisible. It becomes something you're constantly thinking about when you're pulling or when you want to expand your roster at launch because you're still limited to a handful of characters you might not like. When I say gacha systems don't matter until they do, this is exactly what I mean. Every modern gacha has a standard to meet. If you meet that standard, players stop talking about your monetization, they start talking about your combat, your music, your characters, your story, your world. That's where the conversation should be, while gacha is the afterthought. But the moment your monetization becomes more noticeable than your game, you've already lost. Silver Palace can still change this. This game isn't even out yet, and I genuinely hope the developers listen to the feedback, because from everything we've seen so far, the game itself actually looks promising. But if they keep this system exactly as it is, then the conversation isn't going away. The best monetization system is the one players forget about. The worst one is the one they can't stop thinking about. And that's why systems don't matter until they do. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think Silver Palace's system is being judged too harshly, or do you think the players are right to push back and that the developers should address this? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.